You are watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're still live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our conversation this morning, which is on the admission process into institutions of higher learning, let's listen to this background put together by Joseph Otsen.
The tertiary institutions in Nigeria are saddled with the responsibility of contributing to national development through high-level manpower training, inculcation of proper values, and development of the intellectual capacity of the people. In view of this, qualifications from tertiary institutions, especially the universities, are highly regarded, considered for employment, and a step to even higher education. This has placed much premium to tertiary education, with many seeking for admission to study and acquire the relevant qualifications. However, with an approximate population of over 200 million and limited tertiary institutions to accommodate large numbers, many continue to show desperation to gain access to the limited available space. Pressure to gain admission into the tertiary institutions, according to experts, is among the contributing factors leading to malpractices during admission processes. The quest to check these challenges prompted the federal government of Nigeria to establish the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAM, in 1978 to handle all admission matters into tertiary institutions. But has JAM been able to solve the admission and quality of education problems since it came on board? This, to some, is far-fetched, as many candidates with required scores still find it difficult to gain admission. Most higher institutions go ahead to conduct post-UME examinations before finally admitting students, claiming to upholding standards. The news now is that some tertiary institutions are illegally offering admission to candidates who did not sit for JAM examinations. JAM made this accusation, warning applicants against paying any acceptance fee for admission done outside the central admission processing system. This has thrown open the question of standard admission process into Nigeria tertiary institutions, the implication for those who already gained admission and are presently studying, and what are the consequences for the affected institutions. These and other related issues will be on the discuss by the guests on Good Morning Nigeria.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live from the studios of the Nigerian Television Authority. And of course, this morning, we're discussing admission process into tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And joining us via Zoom, Lauren, is the Registrar, Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, Professor Ishak Oloyede. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Thank you very much.
And also joining us from Maiduguri is Professor Babugana Guti, Dean of Engineering, Member Admission Committee, and former Director ICT, University of Maiduguri. Good to have you join us this morning, Dean.
Thank you very much for being on the program this morning.
All right, and with us in the Abuja studios, we'd like to welcome Dr. Abdul Malik Mohammed Durungowa. He is a member of the Governing Council of NOC University at Kachia in Kaduna State. Of course, he has his doctorate in educational administration and planning. Dr. Abdul Malik Durungowa, delighted to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, and joining us also via Zoom from Benin, it's the chairman of the university's admissions committee of the University of Benin, Professor Kingsley Omorogiwa. That's my namesake. Professor Omorogiwa, can we see you there? Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, once again, delighted to have you. Let's begin with the registrar and CEO of JAM, Professor Ishak Oloyede, who is with us via Zoom from Ilorin, where, of course, he also was Vice-Chancellor at some point. Professor Oloyede, well, the trigger for this conversation, we should say, 2 points. One, the ongoing registration for the next UTME, that's Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examinations, and the statement that came from your board some days ago, describing as illegal, null and void the admissions being offered by some universities, including the University of Abuja, which has on its own issued a rebuttal. But tell us, in general, before we get into the nitty-gritty, what is the status of admissions for the current academic year or for the next academic year? What's going on? Who is doing what and who is not doing what?
Thank you very much. One, that is supposed to be ongoing, that will start, ought to have started by September 2020 and ending by June 2021. But the session that had been disrupted by COVID-19 and other issues, for that session, the admission is ongoing, and the admission is expected to close on the 15th of May for public universities. By public universities, we mean universities owned by federal and state governments. For non-public institutions, that is, private universities, public and private colleges of education and polytechnics, this admission will stop on the 15th of June. The reason for the dual ending is that more often than not, unless you finish it, we exhaust the admission into public universities, private and other institutions, colleges of education and polytechnics, many candidates would not willingly want to go unless they are sure they will not have a place, for economic reasons principally, unless they are sure they will not have free tuition universities. So it is for that reason that we have this dual purpose, dual plans. That is concerning the ongoing admission. But for the next academic session that is expected to start October 2021, what the practice now is that we have started registration, and the registration will end on the 15th of May, 2021. As at today, over 62,000, as shortly before the 62,300 plus are registered. And they are registering with the provision of their name. That is National Identification Number. And that's going on very well. We must thank NIMSI, which has improved radically, and the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, the NCC, they have been marvelous in their support. We had a trial test last year which ended in a failure, and that had put me on an edge when the minister directed that we must still comply with government directive on NIM. But so far, so good. NIMSI and all the agents have been very, very excellent, even beyond our expectation. Maybe it's too early to praise them, but I must say that it's beyond my imagination. The level of efficiency, credibility, integrity being displayed this year was nothing. You can't compare what we had last year. A lot of improvement had occurred, and I must thank all the agencies. This is where we are about the two sessions, more or less doing tariff. Thank you.
And Really, Prof, before we let go, I mean, for a while, let's look at the other aspect Kisley asked you. I was talking about the other prompter, or rather, other prompt for this discussion, and that's the issue of universities that were alleged to have admitted students illegally, University of Abuja and others. Could you shed more light on that so that we can now see the perspective of that and then maybe put it in the right place before we continue?
That aberration is another thing. I've talked about the normal issues. What happened was an aberration. Last year, since 2017, in order to be transparent in what we are doing, we established what we call CAPS, Central Admission Processing System. And what CAPS does is that, one, it returns the right to admit candidates. It returns that right to the institutions, because prior to that, 2017, it's possible for JAMB to give admission to a candidate, and the institutions say no, recommended this. What CAB did primarily said that admission is initiated by the institution that wants to admit, because there is nowhere in the world that the institutions are deprived of the right to determine and to choose the persons that will be admitted. But of course, they must follow the guidelines as stipulated by the proprietors. So what we did, what CARS had done, is that it makes it impossible for any other person or authority to admit any candidate or to introduce any candidate. Yes, there is distortion from somewhere. I think you can locate
where Professor Ishak Oloyede, there's some interference. We're not quite sure what the surrounding ambience is for you there, but we're going to give you some time to probably take care of that so that you can have conversation with us. We're still hearing the filtration of some external or extraneous audio from some other persons. Nadabo, that's we needed to pause him and get that. But Prof, you were explaining something very important. I would like you to continue, assuming you're okay now, just to get rid of the noise that was coming in. If you're okay now, just return and then let us know. It looks like somebody is still trying to get your attention somewhere.
We're trying to fine-tune that.
All right. Okay. All right, Prof. If you're okay, just let us know the details further of CAPS, such as you were explaining. Basically, is to return the right of admission to the admitting institution, and then what else?
Yes, it is to return the right of admission to the candidates, to the institutions. But in addition to that, all the parameters for admission are also embedded in the CAPS in such a way that when you upload the score of the candidates, UTME candidate, for instance, you upload the scores, the institutions on their own will also upload. They have been given the access to upload their own post-UTME scores.
Oh, shame. Prof, well, again, I think that's a bandwidth issue now. That's you're slurring from the signals that we are getting. Again, we'll give you some time to sort that out because his contribution on Adabo is very significant.
Yeah,
but we have with us in the studios another guest whom we're going to introduce right away. He's a former Vice Chancellor of University of Abuja and also former Vice Chancellor of Sokoto State University. He's our regular guest on a wide variety of political issues. Professor Nuhu Yakub, delighted to have you this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Earlier, we had introduced Professor Kingsley Omorugiwa as well as Professor Babagana Guti. Let's try the let's try the Zoom connection of Professor Kingsley Omorogiwa of the University of Benin. He's chair of the University Admissions Committee at the University of Benin. Professor Omorogiwa, could you just lead us through the admission process, for instance, in your institution, and how that is in sync with what the JAMB registrar was trying to explain to us before the signal became weak?
I want to thank you again for this opportunity to be able to speak on this matter that is of very vital national importance in view of the role of tertiary institutions in national development. I want to commend JAMB in the first instance for the introduction of CAPS, and which has been running since 2017. Definitely not without the teething problems at the beginning, which have been addressed as well. The bandwidth issue was not so good at the beginning, but now it is so good we are able to access CAPS with little or no difficulty. Well, on the rights to admit students to universities is embedded in the statutory role of JAMB, but not without the contribution of the institutions. And it's surprising at this time to see that there are institutions that will go outside JAMB to admit. The process is laid down, the procedure is clear, and even though there will still be some need or a need to configure the system to hinder what may be considered not following the rules. I think the computer analysts or the software engineers should be able to handle that. No admission should go without following through the CAPS. And in my institution, we are following the rules. Every admission goes through CAPS, and the interpretation of our understanding of the rule we are following, and there is a desk officer who is supposed to monitor our compliance. But maybe I need to say this now. There seems to have been some slowdown. I understand that there's some investigation going on in JAMB, and the desk officers have been swapped, and we are having challenges having access to the desk officers. But in any case, the work is still going on. But the issue of accepting students that we have recommended or approving students that we recommended from our end, talking about the University of Benin, seems to be slow. So, but I've made the complaints to the director of admissions, and I'm sure they are working on that. So the process of, I think there may be need estimates as to the meetings with the officers of the universities and other institutions to ensure that the procedure that is being followed are actually followed. I commend the innovations that JAMB is putting in. We are able to sit in our university and then recommend students, and then and the admission process is going on smoothly as it were, aside from some few technical hitches that may be here or there. So I think I'm not sure that any institution is aware that they have the right to admit without going through CAPS. Everyone is aware. There have been policy meetings and other meetings that followed. The chief executive of JAMB had reiterated it over and over that every admission must go through CAPS. So I think that is where we are. And if there are such infringements and not following the rules, I mean, the such universities should be called to order to do the right thing. And I think it's not late to correct such errors. Thank you very much.
Professor Kingsley, Dr. Abdul Malik and Professor Babagana Guti, we really want to hear from the two of you individually, but let's start with Dr. Abdul Malik too. We've heard from University of Benin there. Let's hear from Kaduna and see what's really happening. How is it going? How's the admission process in your institution, and generally how is CAPS, assisting in doing that, and how is it fine-tuning? the admission processes in that zone?
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. And we want to actually thank JAM for the job they are doing. Even though our institution, that is the NOC University, is a new university which have just been given a license about a week ago by the Federal Ministry of Education. But actually, we are in collaboration with JAM to make sure that every admission that is done with the due process that is required. But let me start by saying that there is a standing guidelines for admission process generally in the higher institutions, more especially in the tertiary institutions, universities. And one of these guidelines is as stipulated by JAM. Once you can be able to go through the guidelines, you may not have a lot of hitches, except, and I said where, maybe the university itself had its own standing, rules or expectations from students. But the standing rules or guidelines, even by the federal government, are the candidate, must first of all, get the required, point from JAM. And then secondly, you must be able to at least have your SSE. The SSE could be NECO, WAEC, or NAPTEP, but of course, you must have the required 5 credits. English and mathematics must be inclusive. And then the other 3 subjects could be relevant to the course that you are under, going to study. And then after that, of course, some universities, subject you to a kind of a screening to see whether the JAM that you actually sat was a JAM that can be able to make you compete in their own university based on standard, and of course, trying to make sure that you have a certain degree of control of the kind of input that you have in your university. So, but as far as we are concerned, like I have said, since we are a new institution, we are trying to see how we can be able to kickstart admission. And the areas in which we are going to admit are purely on sciences and, of course, medical, line. So, and then ICT-oriented courses. So these are the things that we want to sit down and see. Where do we put our bar? Just like I have said, these institutions, like there are federal government or public institutions. That is, even in the public institutions, there are ones that are owned by federal government and there are ones that are owned by state government. You could have a federal university, you could have a state-owned university, and it goes like that up to even, College of Educations and polytechnics. And then there are private institutions, more especially in Nigeria. A lot of private institutions or universities sprang up, just like our own, the NOC University. And then we have faith-based universities that are based on faith, either religion or, of course, they have a particular doctrine. So based on this type of universities that I have spread out, a lot of universities have their own modus of operandi in making sure that the student that comes into their institutions are qualified, and of course, that when they finish studying in that institute and they go out, they should be able to be materials that are marketable in any field, and of course, they should be able to stand the test of time in whatever course that they must have read. So that is what NOC University is trying to do. But of course, you can't go out of the guidelines. If you go out of the guidelines, then definitely you are going to bring in an input in the institution that is not going to, cope up with what is required to be done. So this is where most institutions, have to take, this thing. But one problem again that we are actually facing in Nigeria, because of the large number of turnout of secondary school, students in Nigeria, the number is beyond what you are thinking. So everybody is trying to make sure that he goes into the university. You can have a course, you can announce that this is a course you want to read. You may be looking for just about 40 students for that particular course, but you'll be surprised to find out that about 100 or 200, students have applied for the same course. You don't have the facilities to train more than what will you do? And that is why most of them leave Nigeria to go and even join some quack universities, in neighboring countries. And at the end of the day, they come back. And that is why sometimes I was very happy with what, what do we call this, this body? That is NYC. NYC have to look at where did you even read, and then they have to go and make some verifications from those institutions. In fact, more especially, I'm sorry to say, I don't want to mention country, but I have to, because of what is going on. More especially in Benin Republic. You find somebody just in a 3-bedroom flat, operating a university and you without any standard. So these are areas where we need to look at critically. And that is why a lot of private universities are coming up because of the high number of qualified, I'm telling you, qualified students or who have finished secondary school and they have passed their job, they have passed their work, and the rest of them, but they are at home. Right. So they need where to go in.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Malik, for your points. We will return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's go to Maiduguri Network Center. Professor Babagana Guti, who's Dean of Engineering at the University of Maiduguri and also a member of the Admissions Committee. Now, just walk us through the admission process at University of Maiduguri. Assume, for instance, that I'm Kingsley Osadolo and I'm seeking admission to study engineering at, let's say, with mechanical engineering in your university. What is the procedure, and then what will be the final proof or evidence that I have indeed been legitimately admitted into your institution?
Thank you very much for this question. My colleague has started from the Benin Center, has started giving you some ideas on how the process is. Yes, let me commend JAM for that. All the admission process is being done on CAPS. Now, what maybe the JAM registrar did not explain because of bandwidth issues is that every university has its own catchment area. You are saying, yeah, Kingsley, maybe you are from the south or southeast. For example, the catchment area for University of Maiduguri is northeast. Northeastern state, the 6 northeastern state, Bauchi, Gombe, Taraba, Yobe, Borno, Adamawa. So these ones, and the way JAM did okay, it's not even JAM, actually it's from the federal government, Council of States. Most federal universities have their catchment areas, but JAM will admit 45% of these candidates that apply into a particular program, 45% of them. For example, if there are 100, first 45 merit. Let them come from one local government. As far as they have scored and they are the first 45 candidates, you have to give them all admissions from one family. That is merit. Then there is another 35% that is left for the catchment area. Now, the catchment area will be those 6 states for University of Maiduguri, and every other university has its own catchment. Like, he was saying there are other universities like state universities and even other universities. They have their own formulas, which is a little bit different from that of the federal universities. So it will be a little bit different. The formula, I think the JAM registrar will tell us. But for University of Maiduguri, I know we have catchment 35%. Then 20 is left for educationally less developed states. There are all the states in the north, they are termed educationally less developed. All the states in the southwest, they are educationally developed. Then Ebonyi, Rivers and Cross River, and Bayelsa, they are part of the educationally less developed states. So you will now give them 20% of your admission quota. So that is how we determine the admission quota. So if you are coming from these educationally developed states, you can only get admission in UNIMED when you are in the first 45%. That is the merit quota. So once you don't have that merit quota, then automatically you are not going to get admission in University of Maiduguri. But sometimes, because of the position we are, many in the south may not want to come. So if we don't have somebody from Bayelsa, we can go below and say we are going to give anybody that comes from Bayelsa or Osun admission, just to at least have a presence of some of these states, because some of these states may not want to come over. And that is the procedure. So in every university, the procedure is the same. Is that the Senate always determines the courses, the O-level requirements for every subject, every course. So once the Senate determines, we forward it to JAM. Custodian, they are enforcers. They make sure what we have decided is being enforced. That's all. Most of these things JAM is enforcing actually is either from the federal government or from the universities. So that is the procedure. So once they enforce it on CAPS, it's easy for us to see on CAPS, the candidates that have applied for into every program. Then we now recommend to JAM from CAPS, and JAM will now look at it. Of course, yes, the system has already narrowed it down. It's very difficult for you to even do the wrong thing. Then JAM will now approve, and once it's approved, then you as an individual can go into your CAPS and check that yes, my admission has been approved. After approval, you have to even enter the CAPS again and accept yourself. So once you accept, that's when you can now go and print your admission letter. Then when university resumes for the session, you come and we'll ask you for the JAM admission letter, and that is what we'll use in registering you into the program we have admitted you on CAPS. So that is how you will know. So you yourself you have your own CAPS, not only institutions. You have your own CAPS and as an individual to check that yes, I've been admitted. So if you don't have admission on CAPS, you have not accepted, and somebody comes around and tells you that you have been admitted, or even they give you fake admission letter, of course you are not admitted. CAPS, once you enter your CAPS and you accept, that shows that yes, University of Maiduguri has given you admission. Currently, the admission exercise, we have recommended over 5,000, and unlike my counterpart in Benin complaining of the desk officer, my desk officer has gone through almost over 5,000 and he has recommended, and many of the CAPS I've been following also. I've seen many of the candidates have already accepted their admissions on CAPS, and many have printed their admissions letter. So it's very surprising at this time to see that some universities are admitting outside the CAPS. Maybe I'm thinking previously, when it was introduced, the registrar gave room to correct the anomalies. Some of them maybe they did not correct, or some of them feel that, look, these things will not stay, and they still what they are doing. But I think JAM has done a very good job by bringing these CAPS. I know there are teaching problems. It's been addressed always, and once you complain, they always address. I think the only thing, the problems actually we are having on this CAPS is that most of the candidates from this part of the country are computer illiterate. So they rely mostly on these cyber cafe centers to do some of these things for them. So my thinking is that there should be a group, volunteer group, handled by JAM, coordinated by JAM. They have offices in every state. Volunteers from all the institutions, 1-2 persons, so that just before the exercise begins, we can go to these secondary schools and educate them. Because somebody want to read engineering, subjects for JAM subject for engineering is physics, math, chemistry. Then you now see his subject combination. He has brought in accounting or some other social science courses. So most of them don't get admission because of that. They have very high score, but the subject combination is wrong. Or you check their SSC, they don't have a subject that is required. So you definitely get some that will have very high marks. They don't get admission because of 3 reasons. Either they are O-level subject combinations or JAM subject combinations, or they are not from the catchment of that university, and they don't have as high as the merit candidates. So these are some of the reasons you will see. But once somebody is merited, JAM will not allow you to jump him and pick somebody. Automatically, you must accept him and give him admission. So, so far so good. In the previous year, University of Maiduguri won the best university for following admission processes. Last year we did not win because I think the other institutions are coming up. I'm sure they are happy with CAPS, so trying to do the best also. So I'm sure some of these anomalies, maybe they are just 1-2, but I'm very have accepted CAPS and are happy with what CAPS is doing.
All right. Professor Babagana Guti, thank you very much there for your very lucid explanation. And Nadabo, it's quite interesting that, yes, while he mentions a certain constraint amongst potential candidates seeking admission to universities, he's also proffering a solution. So look, if there are ICT deficiencies among the candidates, how do we bridge that gap? It's not just a task for JAM, I believe. It's also a task for various NGOs. It's also a task for various state ministries of education and to say, look, this is a deficiency that we have found in our candidates. How do we bridge the gap? We'll come back to you later in the course of the conversation, and more particularly also what he explained, that to say that it's still the old order. It is JAMB that issues the letter of admission. That's to say, offer of admission comes from JAMB. So not, yes, of course, it's on the basis of what the universities have supplied, but the offer of admission is issued as a letter by JAMB and not by individual universities. Is that correct, Professor Guti, I believe?
So, but some institutions also, apart from the letter of admission from JAMB, they also give candidates their own university-based letter of admission. But the rule is that no candidate will be registered without the JAMB admission letter. And no candidate will be registered without the printout of the JAMB results. And this is what we do in our institution. So you must bring your JAMB admission letter, you must bring the printout of your results, then we will also issue you on university admission letter. But it is from what you have brought to us from JAMB that will make us give you that admission letter. And to add to that, you know, universities that go outside CAPS, they put the students at risk, because when you go to NYSC, they will ask for, they only admit candidates that are matriculated. So if you don't admit in CAPS, the candidate will not be allowed to do NYSC. So these are some of those things that I think the institutions that are doing outside CAPS should know. Because if you graduate a student and he doesn't go for NYSC in Nigeria, you know the implications. So I think they should be able to do the correct thing.
Nadabo, this is very important. I mean, when it's Professor Guti is addressing institutions, but of course we do know that parents, guardians, and even candidates themselves need to be aware of this information.
Everybody
that's absolutely.
All stakeholders.
You got it. To say all stakeholders that, look, the primary document you need to evidence your admission into a university is that produced and issued to you by JAMB through CAPS. If a university then decides to issue you its own letter of admission, that university must also have cited that letter of offer of admission by JAMB. The joint registrar is still there, but of course we'll come back to him later.
Most possibly, when you looking at what he said, really, that issue of NYSC there, you cannot even perform the NYSC without being matriculated. Right. And that one is being given by JAMB too. And if you just cut corners at the university, cut corners.
Apart from NYSC, in some job situations, you are required to provide evidence that indeed you went to the institution you went to and that you were admitted in the first instance to have gone to that institution.
There are so many of such in this country. Professor Louis Yakubu, let's hear from you. You've been here for quite a while and been hearing the discussion as it unrolled. CAPS is good, it looks like, and it seems as if it's transparent. It's giving the students the assurance that you are not going to be in any state of disadvantage if you come through us. The universities have been given that mandate to do the same, and but just recently, as Guti said, maybe the registrar gave some room for to correct some certain anomalies, and you find that some institutions are now being targeted at doing something illegal. What would you say about the recent statements by the JAMB about University of Abuja and of course some other institutions who might not have followed this process?
I asked me this question, so Abuja, because I used to be vice chancellor there.
Not only that, anyway.
I don't want my former institution to be seen as if it's criminalized.
Not really, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, let me start by saying that I left university management, for some 4 years ago, and this issue of CAPS that we are talking about is entirely new to me in terms of admission.
Okay.
But I understand that they just want to make sure that the system is streamlined and that things are properly done. I really know to what extent it became a major issue. That by 2017, the issue of CAPS came into being. But because what I knew when I was there, both here in Abuja and in Sokoto is that, after the JAMB release the results, students who have applied will go to, will certainly, the result will go to the schools they have applied to. And the universities will, based on the parameters, one, and also the committee that is set up usually in each university to ensure that, proper admission process, takes place, will now sit on the results to consider, just as a Professor Babagana Guti, yes, said, the criteria are there, national merit, catchment area, educationally backward, states and so on. These are criteria that were used. But I also want to, at this point, suggest that actually instead of you looking at this criteria, the Nigerian government or the Nigerian, this education system should be looking at, the issue of merit or, try to uplift the status of particularly science, technology, innovation programs in the universities. Because, this idea of, people are fighting over Islamic studies, they are fighting over religious studies or languages. I think we should have actually gone beyond this point. And also, it is very crucial that we begin, yes, particularly when we introduce, when we put emphasis on science, technology, and initiatives, we begin to see that the criteria of, merit will actually, bring up, those who are qualified, to go into these programs. In fact, the merit should actually be on specific subjects that will help this country to develop. It's not, where, you come from, which is important, but I think the emphasis being given to, areas of somebody's emergence is, something that worries me now, because we've gone to the point that we really have to ask ourselves this question as in a country, what is our fate? Where are we going? How can we catch up with advanced countries? I don't think it is the issue of, which state, is getting more students than the other, but which programs can actually help in advancing the course of development of this country. Having said this, I think the introduction of CAPS, is quite, is welcome. It's welcome in the sense that, there is a need to actually stamp out the issue of corruption in admission process. When I was VC, I knew, how we battled this thing. People, even some of the people in the committee for admission,
they smuggle.
Oh, they will go about selling admission to students. I couldn't believe it. This was something I had to battle, even up to the point that, a member who was also a very important member of my committee, I'll not mention name, very important member, in the committee, will be, was accused by a student. I gave 150,000 naira to this man to get me admission. And we had to set up a committee to find out exactly what happened. And what we did was to, in fact, actually we got advanced information that they were demanding for money. And what we did was to, provide, specified, and, numerized, currencies to give to students to go and give, so that we actually find out, if that is what is happening. And we got to the point that, yes, we discovered that, people were asking for admission. So if we can stamp out, the corrupt tendencies in admission, it will help a great deal. But I think that emphasis will actually shift from national merit, catchment area, and let us go for specific subjects that will actually help this country to move forward.
No, I didn't explain this in further detail.
No.
You talked about it earlier to say specific subjects.
Yeah,
say
I'm talking of science, technology, innovations. We simply are lacking. In fact, this is, I gave this inaugural lecture, I'm sorry, not inaugural lecture, convocation lecture at IBB University, La Paix, about, that's 2019, about 2 or 3 years ago. And I was actually amazed that at that point that this lecture was being, delivered, the so-called elders of, I'm sorry to use this word, but the so-called elders of Adamawa State went to the National Assembly to ask that a University of Technology, Modibo Adama, University of Technology should be converted to a conventional university. I was amazed. I was actually annoyed that at this point in time, people are thinking in terms of, oh, how do I further the understanding of Fulfulde or Islamic studies or Islamic studies. Christian religious studies. What we need now is actually emphasis on science. So, and because science is actually the language of today, I'm so passionate. I like the passion of the Honorable Minister of Communication and digital economy. He's so passionate about the need that, for us to actually go the technology way. And I think this is what this country needs now, instead of,
Okay, in other words, you are suggesting perhaps a dual, if not triple, template in terms of criteria for admission. To say, for specific STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
That's right.
Your merit should be, instead of a blanket 45%, probably 70%.
Exactly.
And then, probably, I'm just saying, probably 70%. Catchment area, probably 20%, and then educationally disadvantaged states, and 10%, then the remainder of 10%. So that it's not, because we have instances in Adabo of otherwise very bright students. When you hear the scores for admission into, say, medicine, into engineering, the scores are usually, top drawer. Hang on a second, top drawer. And in a number of cases, because they are unable then to gain admission into those institutions, they go for courses that they ordinarily wouldn't have gone to. And versus other courses that they are there, their scores are usually very high. That's the point you're making, Prof?
Yes.
All right, so thanks. We'll have the opportunity of getting the other guests to contribute to this. Let's see if Professor Ishak Oloide is back with us via Zoom, and if his bandwidth is much better now. Professor Oloide, I hope you have had the benefit of listening to the comments of the other guests. You probably can beat your chest, because there's been a lot of praise heaped on CAPS and what JAMB itself is seeking to do. But there's an aspect that you also need to explain to us, because we've had the benefit of listening to University of Benin and University of Maiduguri, and of course a newly licensed NOC University. You say CAPS. Is it only for federal universities, or CAPS is also applicable to state universities? And is it also applicable to privately owned universities? And if so, what are the criteria for accessing and ultimately gaining admission through whether you are going to a state university or a private university? Prof. Wow, it looks like it's not a particularly good day. If we will need you to explain that to us.
And of course, he's at the center of the show.
Absolutely, Honorable. But let's. All right, Prof. We understand you are back. Oh, Prof. Maybe we can invoke something. Who are those that are seeking to distort your communication with us this morning? We should invoke something to paralyze them.
Thank you very much. I think the problem, I was never off. I was thinking the problem is from NTA. But to go to the I.
So, all right, Prof. The problem is not from NTA. Our engineers tell us that their connection to you is okay, and our bandwidth here is sufficient. And that's why we're in fact able to accommodate two Zoom connections. We'll actually take on a third. But if you are back, let's see if the engineers can tell us. Well, I understand that we can't get you almost immediately, but just since you can hear us, just return the question when we come back from this short break. We'll give you the opportunity to explain.
WA took over Lafayette Sugar Company in 2014 and started the project in 2016. The integrated project sits on a 20,000 hectares of land with a processing capacity of 10,000 tons sugar canes per day, 20 million liters of ethanol per annum, 220,000 metric tons of refined sugar and a 35 megawatts generating plant to be connected to the national grid. Accompanying the project is a 235 road network connecting 15 communities, 20-kilometer irrigation plant, 200 housing units for staff of the company, health center, and an airstrip. All sugar and allied investments of BUA Group are set to take advantage of the entire sugar production value chain. These are investments in sugar estates as well as refining capabilities.
This is the main flagship BIP project for the BUA Group, which is meant for the self-sufficiency program of the federal government in the sugar sector. And the BUA Group has invested so much in this facility to ensure that we contribute our own quota to the sufficiency program of the federal government, which is the National Sugar Master Plan. Like you have seen, this is an integrated factory complex coming up in the Lafayette, and this is the first kind of this is the first kind in the whole of the country. No other sugar plantation have this kind of facility because it has 4 factories in one: an integrated factory, a mill, a refinery, an ethanol plant, and a power plant. And on completion, will ensure that the sugar importation by Nigerians will reduce drastically, and that is the aim that is driving force why BUA Group is investing so much in this facility.
General, we are at 65% all around, including all the areas. But depending, there are some areas that were 100% completed. There are some areas where 78% completed. There are some areas where even 90% completed. But if you calculate it cumulatively, we are at 65% completed. In the next 3 months, we are going to be at 90% completed. Yeah, work done, civil work now is at 90% completed. As you can see, behind me here is just completion and backfilling. During that, after that, at the same time, we have started installation of the factory, the sugar factory and the refinery at the same time. So that one is on the way going. The one in the ethanol is 100% completed, both the civil and the mechanical, everything. We are ready to go for that one. For the boiler, we are at 65% completed. We are waiting some items to come from Brazil to complete the work. For the mill house, we are at 65% completed. That one, when we are done in the next 3 months too, we are going to be through with it. We are targeting the first quarter of 2022 because that is when the rainy season is coming to an end, where our tractors and equipment will be able to access the field. We harvest and we start production. Trial operation, commissioning, trial operation, and then we continue.
Atairu Sani, a graduate of mechanical engineering, was into petty trading, but since the project started, his life has changed.
As a fresh graduate from university, I did not have enough experience and knowledge about my area of study. But since I came here, I think I've learned a lot. After this project, I think if I'm asked to handle another project similar to this, I can do that.
At BUA, we are very, very committed to ensuring that Nigeria and Nigerians can get the benefits of the National Sugar Master Plan. It is not enough for us to refine sugar. We have a refining capacity currently of 1.5 million metric tons. With this, when completed, it will increase that to 1.7 million metric tons. The plan is to ensure that for as much as possible, we should be able to provide Nigerians with cheaper alternatives to imported sugar. So, and what the plant here does is, sugarcane is a very versatile plant. Besides the refined white sugar, which is a byproduct of the first product of sugarcane, we're going to be doing animal feeds, we're going to be doing ethanol, and the sustainable nature of the plants, the refining plants, will ensure that no waste products, be it effluents, be it steam or dust or smoke, is let out into the atmosphere. Everything will be recycled for use within the plants. And then for those things that are not being able to be recycled, we'll turn them into compost or manure for use on the fields.
With over $300 million investment in the BUA Lasuko project, it is expected on completion that over 5,000 people will be given employment directly and 10,000 given employment indirectly. When operational, the project is expected to boost the economy of Eduluku government area and that of residents like Atairu. Kehinde Omolosho, NTA News.
Prof, we've got very little time remaining, but of course that question still stands. We're talking about how good CAPS has been, of course, in trying to curb corruption, make it transparent, and give the students, the assurance that, of course, they are on the right track going through CAPS. The question now is, does this apply really to state universities, to private universities? I know the federal government universities are already on it.
Thank you very much. As I said earlier, the CAPS encompasses all the different proprietorships. Federal universities have their rules as prescribed by the federal government. Institutions owned by states have their rules as prescribed by the state government. Private institutions have their rules as prescribed by their proprietors. We do not impose one rule on the other. Each has been, CAPS has reflected the wish of each of the proprietors. And that's why at the beginning of every year, each private and state universities are asked to give us the prescription of their proprietors. And this has been embedded in CAPS. I must say that there is no problem about proprietorship. We are conscious of the fact that education is on the concurrent list, and therefore higher education in particular, inclusive, and therefore we have created a platform that allows flexibility. No institution, and I'm happy that my brother from Kaduna who was talking about that has mentioned that it's new. By the time he goes into CAPS, he will see that CAPS provides opportunity for different proprietorship. I must also say that University of Benin, talking about investigation, that is about JAM. JAM does not hide anything. We do everything we do transparently. 17 staff of JAM were arrested, were discovered to have connived with some institutions to commit some atrocities on the ongoing exercise. Meeting Professor Guti, I'm meeting him physically for the first time now, if it is through this virtual thing, but he knows that we have contacted him and he's doing a very good job for us. We thank you for that. Investigation is on those people. University of Benin desk officer happens to be one of them. We cannot, because we want to speed up issues, allow people with inadequate integrity to handle your institution. We are solving that problem. 17 of them. We have invited the security agents to look into that, and hopefully by next week, the speed will be on. And I must also say that cyber cafe that Professor Guti mentioned, the cyber cafes constitute a lot of problems, not only in the north, as he said, but everywhere in the country, including Abuja. And that's why yesterday we came out with a policy that nobody, no candidate is expected to go to any cyber cafe. We have removed the issue of email from the registration process because it's in the bid to get email. Everything is now done by the students on their phones, whether they are iPhone or ordinary phone. They can send text. Once you can send text, you can access all our services, which effect from, in fact, this morning. We have removed the issue of candidates going to create email addresses and therefore exposing their vital information to these fraudsters in the cyber cafe. And again, my brother, the former VC of Abuja and Sokoto, mentioned the issue of science technology. That has also been embedded into CAPS. Depending on your university, if it is a science-based university, 60% for science and 40% for humanities. If it is technology institutions, 70% technology and science and 30%. CAPS will be addressing, or CAPS has addressed all these problems, because with science, you also need humanities. I'm a student of Islamic studies, and I think people in areas or in the humanities, they are also contributing to national development. But I agree with you that at this stage in our national development, we require more people in the sciences. But unfortunately, the school system, the secondary school produce higher students from the humanities. You have 70%, 60% from the schools who are humanity-based. And you want to admit you are limiting them to 30 or 40%. That's part of the problem, but we must do it. And that's exactly what we are doing. CAF had already included all such things in it. CAF is for everybody. For also, you also mentioned, look at University of Maiduguri. University of Maiduguri last year was the best university in terms of compliance with admission regulation. Covenant University came second, and other universities like that. So what we are saying in effect is that CAPS had already addressed all these problems. What universities like University of Abuja did this year that really didn't go well with JAM was the fact that they were giving admission to candidates and these admission letters, and these candidates will now come and ask for their admission letter in JAM, only for us to discover that they had not even initiated the process of the candidates. And not only that they were doing that, they were collecting what they call acceptance fee of 30,000 from each of these candidates. And when they collect this money from these candidates, say you offer him medicine, and you collect 30,000 from him. When you now want to process it on CAPS, you will see that the candidate is not qualified because some other candidates from the same state with that candidate who score higher, who has higher scores. You cannot jump those candidates and go and pick the person who had paid your illegal acceptance fee. And that is why the university did it last year. We called the university and we warned the university that it should not happen again. About 5 universities were involved last year. And we invited all the vice chancellors concerned. We advised them. We tried to condone it. And I think for this year, it appears to me that that condonement was what emboldened University of Abuja to be issuing admission letter for candidates that had not even been processed. And from the scores of the candidates, there is no way they could be accommodated for the courses for which they have been made to pay. Because one advantage of CAPS is that CAPS has said that no candidate can be given a course other than the course he had chosen without his approval. If a candidate does not meet your requirement for medicine, for example, you want to move into chemistry, there is a process in CAPS. You will tell him through CAPS, we are proposing you for chemistry. Do you want to accept? Once the candidate accepts, it comes to them directly. But the issue of admission of candidates that are not qualified and that will not be qualified for the admission and collecting money from them. And we have many of them now coming from University of Abuja. And that was why we issued the release we issued to say, look, this thing must stop. Because those of them, 5, 6 of them who were involved last year knew how we bent backwards to accommodate, in fact, at the expense of the candidates, because there were candidates, they were admitted for law that ended up in courses that they did not require. But because acceptance fee had been legally collected from them, and we wouldn't say because money had been collected from them, then we will skip candidates who are more qualified. So this is the issue. And of course, there are sanctions for all this. And we will not hesitate to apply the sanctions because the law is very clear that nobody can, no other person is given the right to approve admission into any institution, university, polytechnic, colleges of education, or IEI, without the approval of the board.
Okay, Professor Ishak Oloyede, thank you very much, but let's just also remind our viewers that in the course of this conversation, we do not have any official of the University of Abuja with us in the studios, but we do know that the University of Abuja itself has issued a statement rebutting the claim by JAMB that it is issuing illegal admission, but the JAMB registrar, of course, has provided more details, just to indicate that the University of Abuja is not part of this conversation. Well, but Professor Oloyede, one point that you need to clarify again for stakeholders. You have said all institutions, no matter the proprietorship, private, public, state, federal, they're all linked to CAPS. Now, what about private universities? Do privately owned universities offer their own letters of admission, or they have the candidates who are offered admission have first to have that offer letter from JAMB, and then the private university gets its own offer letter to the candidate as well? Because in some cases, candidates who apply to private universities just get an offer letter from university, and the requirement is pay an acceptance fee, usually, of course, running to hundreds of thousands of naira. What should a candidate or a guardian do in that regard with respect to those who are saying, no, okay, no, I don't want to go to any public university, federal or state, I want to go to a private university? What should that candidate or the guardian do?
All institutions, whether public, private, has access to CAPS. If you have a candidate who have not, institutions that have candidates who have not applied to them, maybe they belong to their proprietors, there are process of changing, and they will change their courses to the university, the new university, maybe private university, and that university will propose, that private university will propose and recommend the candidate to JAMB. And once JAMB approves, the university is free. I don't see the value in issuing a new letter, but if you like, issue another letter. But that letter must be based on the letter issued by JAMB. Institutions contact JAMB from outside the country for validation of qualification of universities and polytechnics in Nigeria. Once a candidate is sent to JAMB, and we look at our record, it was not admitted, we send it that is fake. And you are putting such candidates at disadvantage, because once they are not known to JAMB, whether you are private, public, or whatever, the candidate does not exist. Because we are also damaging the statistics that we are rolling out. For instance, Ghana here would say that they have gross enrollment ratio higher than Nigeria, despite the number of universities we have in Nigeria. It's not true. It's not true because many admissions in Nigeria are done under the table, and therefore they are not recorded. One of the problems is that we want to have statistics. MBS will not be rolling out statistics that are incorrect, inadequate, because many people, they even cheat the proprietors because they admit candidates, collect money from them, and they are not known to the proprietor, whether public or private. So CAPS FU, every proprietor will be able to ask CAPS, how many candidates are in my school? Irrespective of what the management tells you, we will provide it for you. And then you ask question. The money you are paid to the institution is less than the number. And we have so many of such that JAMB has helped the private proprietors to checkmate the fraud of some of the operators. So it does not matter whether an institution is private or public, they must, any candidate they want to admit. The major problem I have with private institutions is that they are not open enough.
Oh, well, thank you, Professor Shaka. We're running short of time, but at least we need to get down to Professor Kingsley Omori, maybe in some 60 seconds. What advice would you have, really, as a parting statements to, admission seekers, especially in Nigeria, towards abiding by CAPS and, of course, getting things done rightly for themselves?
Thank you very much. I I've listened to the discussion so far, and I think it has been quite revealing. And the challenge that is there is that most of the candidates do not understand the processing of that goes on in CAPS. So from our end, we have decided that when the students come to write the post-UTME exams, we will find a way to reach them and let them know the procedures. Some students only go to the and check for admission status. They do not go to the other one that is the transfer approval, which is necessary when there is a change from the course they originally applied to, if they cannot be admitted in there and they are offered an alternative. And some of them are not able to know that that is what is to be. So, and then the issue of some of them think that when the admission comes, the university do not have a part in it. They just say, oh, I've been admitted by JAMB. Of course, we know that JAMB is the one that ultimately admits, but the process starts with the universities. And the procedures, when made clear to the candidates, I'm sure that they'll be able to follow. And I'm also pleased with the effort of the registrar to try and sidetrack these agents in the computer centers. The exploitation and the misinformation seems to be high in that regard. But in any case, I want to say that there are some of the phones that the candidates have that are not able to access the information in CAPS as they should. So they need to still go to the cyber cafe. I'm sure that I observed that except the phone is an Android and has the updated Chrome, all the information as it's needed may not be on display. So they have to still go to the cyber cafe. So in any case, I think...
I'm sorry, it was just a reverberation there from Professor Kingsley Omorogiwa with us via Skype from the University of Benin. Very quickly, Professor Guti, very quickly, yes or no? There is no uniform academic calendar as it were now. ASU strike has disrupted a great deal. Those who wrote UTME last year are struggling to get into I don't know which session. JAMB is already registering now for another exam that will take place sometime. For how many years do you think UTME scores should be valid? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or as it is at the moment?
Well, this has been a discussion that I may not want to make comment on, and National Assembly has had that discussion with JAM, and I think the discussion is still going on. Let me leave that one to the National Assembly and maybe JAM. But what I wanted to inform you here is that, you see, the admission process also, we have this, the regulatory bodies, for example, Dental and Council or Law School, they also give us numbers. We cannot admit beyond 200, 150. So you find out that candidates will have very high score because the number is limited. Somebody with very high score will not be admitted because...
Professor Guti, I was speaking about, I was asking you to talk about the validity of UTME scores, 1 year or 2 years. In your opinion, which is advisable? Because we are pressed for time now.
Well, this issue of validity, you know, JAM exam is a rating exam. It is not like WAEC and the rest. It's just to rate the candidates who is better and be admitted. So I think what JAM is saying is that it should be 1 year because it's a rating exam, not the other types of exam that people are thinking of.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Guti there. Lisa, Kingsley, this is a wide topic, really. We need to come back to it somehow.
Absolutely. We have to return to it at some point. There are still a number of issues to clarify.
Many we didn't talk.
We also have to have the opportunity of speaking to candidates to just have, to know how well they understand the processes, as Professor Omorogiwa was talking about. So a deep appreciation to all our guests this morning. Professor Ishaq Oloyole, Registrar of JAMB, joining us via Zoom from Ilorin, Professor Babagana Guti from Meduguri, here in the Abuja studios, former Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja and Sokoto State University, Professor Nuhu Yakub, as well as Dr. Abdul Malik Dorunguwa, who is on the Governing Council of NOC University, recently licensed at Kachia in Kaduna State. So that's it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you for tuning in. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, do take care of yourself. I'm Kingsley Osari.
And I'm Mr. Nadabo Usman. Thank you for watching.